So while the engine is out, that gives us access to a bunch of things that are inaccessible, like the climate control. We're going to start by working on the coolant system. The radiator had already been recored right after I brought the car home from the junkyard, and I'd recently got it rotted out, so I think it's good to go for a new motor. I also run a Tefba cooling filter. This stays in the upper radiator hose, and it has got a mesh filter in it to grab anything in the cooling system that should not be there. I also run a couple of magnets down in the bottom so it can hold on to anything metal that may get in there. With all of those items being pretty much brand new, I don't think the cooling system's going to have any issue with the new motor. Next, we're going to go on to the fan, and this is where I say public service announcement: check your motor mounts or you will get a two-piece fan shroud like I did. Luckily, they sell reproduction fan shrouds, little money out of pocket, and good to go. Fan is dingy. The pro tip that I wanted to give here is that I like to put a lot of stuff in a simple green and then a Vaporust bath so that I get everything clean and then derusted. So right here, I'm actually taking the bolts that attach that fan clutch to the fan blade. I've let them sit in simple green for a few hours, and I'm going to take them over to the sink, and if it's dirt, if it is paint, simple green in the concentrated solution there will get a lot of stuff off, and that bolt comes out, beautifully and cat plated. So I figure, hey, let's put the fan clutch in there and get the same result. It's going to be great. Well, I didn't realize that simple green would get past the bearings and then forever would just drip out onto that fan shaft. So while it looks really good, it's ruined. But you can buy a new one. So that's what I did. Again, got this from Best Offer Counts. The thing looks great. It's got the correct plating on it, and I know that this shouldn't be an issue with the cooling system since it is new. So let's get this fan assembled. I like to put anti-seize on everything that I put back together. I do not like stuck fasteners. I do believe in a double D though. Once I got in all the bolts in with anti-seized, I then torqued them down with my torque wrench to 20 foot-pounds a piece to make sure that nothing would go anywhere. Finished result. I think it turned out really good. Next, we're going to talk about the air conditioning muffler. The muffler is in the discharge side of the air conditioner. Here's a 1970 muffler taken apart, and it has just got a bunch of baffles that gives it a spot to quiet the vibrations. So this is the original muffler that came with the car. I didn't even know what a proper one should look like. For a few years I ran it without any covering on it, but then I read a suggestion that said put some pipe insulation over it. Still look miserable. Come across a factory service bulletin that shows what the insulation should actually look like, and spend a lot of time sanding this muffler down. I couldn't blast it because I didn't want to get it inside. I don't know who made it. That's either a W or an M with an arrow through it. But you saw it in the other video. Got it nice and painted, and then I got the muffler insulation from Best Offer Counts. I got that installed. It comes with 2 brand new clamps on it. Looks great, matches the original. The next item we're going to look at is the heater valve. This heater valve was high technology in 1964, only getting a patent granted a few years before in 1961. These heater valves, they always leak. Nobody makes them. I have tried myself to rebuild one. I delicately uncrimped it. The big problem that I have is that you've basically got a plate on the bottom, you've got a lever at the top, and in the middle is this little bitty O-ring. That O-ring always leaks, but the plate at the bottom and the top are what hold the valve together. So at the bottom, I tried to screw on the gate, and at the top, I have tried to pin down the lever to get it to work, and I put it all back together, but it was just not a successful repair. What keeps on happening is that the lever itself will get loose, and when the lever gets loose, that lets that rod with the O-ring come out, and it leaks. So I looked for various ways to fix this. I looked at valves from Vintage Air. They were just a mess to put in. If you go out here and you look for it, hey, nobody is making a 64 Buick water valve. But going over the internet, what I found is, hey, what is this? Somebody makes one for a 61 to 62 Chevy Impala. And boy, does that look a lot like exactly what I need. I didn't buy it off of Amazon. I got it off eBay, paid about $90 for it, and thought, let me give this a shot to see if I can have something that is more factory appearing, because there are other solutions out there. People buy generic heater valves from the auto parts store, and when you open the hood, they just stick out like a sore thumb. So here are the two side by side. What you see is that the angle's a little different on what I would call the discharge side. It's a 45, not a 90. 5/8 input and output, the exact same. The bottom looks exactly the same. Besides the input and output, you've just got the lever on the wrong side. So I thought, hey, there's going to be a way for me to fix this. Well, I had that heater valve that didn't work. If I could just figure out a way to get the lever grafted on the other one, this might work for my application. So I got a nail and I bent it up, and I'm hot gluing it onto the new valve just to kind of test the theory of, could this be successful? You know, if I extend that to the other side, can I get it to work on the car? And yes, I proved that theory. That theory did work. Just want to show you the positions of that valve in case someone's got, say, a Riviera application or something different. Open to the front, close to the back. Riviera folks may be able to just swap where their cable is and it work. So I made the bracket out of a piece of scrap metal that I had lying around, and you can see where it had come off the original one, and I used the bench grinder to make it fit very precisely against the existing one. And then I've got this bracket here that I've made that goes between the two of them. I'm actually going to put screws in here for a permanent fit, and I'm drilling it and I'm putting 2 screws because, just like before, I expect these valves to need replaced. It's no problem, at least they're reproducing them now. You got to cut the screws down to make sure that they are not going to contact the top of the valve. So here's the close-up of what it looks like underneath my bracket, and that bracket I can take off and stick on a new valve. It works great. There's no binding up like the old one. So let's put it on the car. You've got a couple of 2 screws. You've got a clamp for the cable, and then it's ready to be tested. So here it is. It's working great. It's removable, and the best thing is it looks factory. Now, you know, it had that 90 degree on it. I bought this hose off Amazon for $18.33. It's got a hard 90 degree angle. It's a Gates, and that will let me come out of that heater valve and then take more of an immediate left than I could with a hose that I would just form myself. It wasn't a formed hose. It would just be that's the direction it's going, and that hose may kink. So got the hose from Amazon in that beat up box that they had, gave it an adjustment, and here's the old one compared to the new one just to show the differences. Hey, it's going to fit my needs, and this hose is long enough on the other end that it's going to be able to get to the top of the engine. That's the only 5/8 hose I'm going to have to buy. Next thing we're going to talk about is the receiver dryer. This is a service part. This is also a disposable part. So what I'm doing with this, I'm just giving it a cleanup. I'm not blasting it. I am not giving it a great sanding job. I do like to do everything I can to make things look great, but this is just going to get thrown away. So I gave it a good shot of paint. And then the compressor, I'm cleaning it up. I may detail it a little bit more before I put it in the car, but that's also something that is likely going to get refurbished. Now let's start on the fiberglass heater boxes. Interesting story is when my dad had the car, he actually didn't need the air conditioner, and so he removed the air conditioning part. Well, I happen to have a whole parts car, and that's where I choose to get all the air conditioning parts out of and stick them in the car that I was restoring. So this is the parts car. I took the compressor, the muffler, all the fiberglass components, the condenser out of that. I took everything that I could, and then I put it into my Wildcat. I didn't do any detailing when I moved this over back 10, 15 years ago, but now the engine's out, and it is time to make everything look better. The 3M Marine Color Gloss Restore was a $25 purchase off of Amazon. I had read some really good stuff about it. I had wanted to get all this fiberglass looking better, but some people paint it black, which is incorrect, and I just wanted to really clean it up. So this stuff I felt like did exceptionally well. A lot of elbow grease, but you put it on, you rub it in, and it looks good when you're done with it. This is a vacuum actuated valve, and what you're seeing on the bottom there is where I previously fixed it. It's just a vacuum tee that is in it with epoxy around it to fix it. I gave it a coat of paint to make it look much better, and then I reinstalled it. You'll see here I put the original fan blade in Evapor-Rust because it looked miserable, and here is the inside of the plenum, and this works by vacuum. The top door is going down to let fresh air into the car when there is vacuum. This is me actually down in the car using the 3M product again, using Q-tips, getting into all the cracks, just trying to make it look as good as I can. Wipe on, wipe off, but still a lot of hot, sweaty work in a garage that does not have an air conditioning. So this is the fresh air intake. The one you see in front of you is off of my parts car, but the mice had long since taken my insulation out of it. So got a wire brush, vacuumed it out. I had some jute left over from when I installed a carpet, and I matched it to what came out of the parts car. I didn't just want to take the insulation bit off of the parts car because I'm sure that stuff would have just come to pieces if I tried to get it out. I don't want to breathe that. And I've got new material, so I figure I'll use that. I am using some spray adhesive from the old Hobby Lobby that I had on hand, following the directions, getting it nice and tacky. Now, you may be concerned because you see me spraying a lot of stuff in my workshop, but I've got a 4-foot by 4-foot industrial fan that will definitely run a breeze, so I'm not too worried about breathing in fumes, and I wear breathing protection when I really need to. So I've got that cut to size. I just dropped my flashlight there, and I'm getting that pressed into place of where it's supposed to be. Now I've got to run a bead around all these components. So I start with some gasket maker and start going to town. The factory used probably more of a rubberized compound than a silicone, but this is what I had available at the auto parts store. It's worked well for this in the past. So put a big old chunky bead on everything and then take it over to the car. I'm going to put it into place here and then put a piece of tape on it to hold it, but you're not going to see me actually use my fingers and go over the silicone until I'm done with the other assembly. So you get to put a bead around where the fan outputs meet the plenum to the heater core, as well as completely around this box right here. I used a lot of this stuff. You can see a 3-ounce container is just dead after this happens. So I'm getting this delicately mounted in the car without getting silicone over everything else, and getting 2 screws put in just to hold it in place. And then I'm getting those cinched down like they need to be. There's a screw at the bottom that's hard to get to, but you don't want to forget any of these because fiberglass is delicate and you want it well supported. Now what I'm doing is I'm taking silicone from one spot, putting it in a low spot, making sure everything is well sealed. This is the blower motor resistor. Some new cars have transistors. Back in those days, it is still a resistor, but I was especially careful with it. This is basically like almost a piece of bakelite or circuit board material. Last step is this has got to be grounded. Now, indeed, there is brand new paint on this that I worked a really long, hard time on, but you've got to scrape that off and make sure that it's bare metal to bare metal to make a good electrical connection, or that isn't going to run. So this is the ground, and then underneath is where the power connects, and the power is just a simple push-on spade type connector. It is weatherproof if you make sure that the rubber meets the rubber. This is the bottom of the condenser box that you saw me detailing, but you notice there is a hole with nothing in it. What actually goes there is a rubber drain tube. I bought one from Inline Tube, the one they sell that's universal from 1964 and up. Indeed fits. It fits great. It doesn't cost too much money. It got to me, and magically there was no box that was torn apart on that one. It's sometimes hard to do things in this car, but I've actually got a ladder so I crawl into the car and do things. So there's the original hose clamp and some rubber pieces around it. I got that out of there and then got it cleaned up. Old compared to new, perfect match, no complaints whatsoever. And now it's just time to get the new one on. So like the service manual likes to say, installation is the opposite of removal. It's just another one of those little details. It's going to help me from getting dirt daubers out. When my mechanic looks at it from underneath, it's going to look great. I'm really proud of where I'm at. Everything is starting to go back in the engine bay instead of being removed, and I've been able to clean up some things that are very hard to usually get to. Thank you so much for watching, and please subscribe.